An Ewok village styled homeless encampment appears in trees high above Seattle. Jonathan Cho of Como. No, not Como. Of the Discovery Institute. I keep going with Como. He found this one. This is after Jeremy Harris of Como found the swimming pool in the encampment, right? Same one. So Jonathan Cho is walking around. Let's get into it. Here we go. Ewok-styled. This is good.
All right, I've seen a lot in my day, but check this out. Somebody built an encampment up in the trees. It's like a treehouse. Oh my gosh. Oh, there's just needles everywhere. I don't even know how you get up there. It's like there's some type of
You don't.
ladder system that's used. Right, I want to try to make my way up there, but it looks like you've got to use these ropes or these wires. It's like, I don't think I'm going to be climbing this right now, but it appears these cables are used to climb partially, and then you link up with this ladder system and make your way up. I'm going to fire up the drone, see if I can get a better look. Whew. This is so crazy. It's like that scene from Return of the Jedi. This is the Ewok village in downtown Seattle, right off the highway.
Do you know what he's talking about, Star Wars? If you don't, there was a scene where all the Ewoks, they were kind of the furry, like bear type creatures-ish. I'm going off memory because it's been a long time, and I'm no longer an enormous Star Wars fan. But Return of the Jedi, so there's these Ewoks that live in these structures like this, not unlike this. So Jonathan Cho's looking up going, all right, this is kind of like the scene from the Ewok village. And he's right. He is right. Now, my thought is, well, we can go down here. Let's start the article and we'll talk it through. Seattle vagrants. Love the Daily Mail. They just call it what it is. Seattle vagrants have now constructed a homeless encampment in the trees above the crime-ridden city, prompting one stunned local to liken it to the Ewok village from Star Wars. It's true. That's what that looks like. Local journalist Jonathan Cho stumbled across the ramshackle treehouse high in the city's trees on Friday and deployed a drone to get a closer look. Jonathan, that was a good call. Well done on the drone. Don't be climbing up there. You know what I mean? That could be rigged. Now, let's talk about it for a second. Those looked like those were climbing ropes. And the way that structure is created, that looks to me like somebody has like a rock climbing background where they've gone on multiple day climbs where you're basically putting a tent together like that, hooked to the mountain with a series of webbing or whatever. That's what this looked like. This looked like something created by somebody with a climbing background, rock climbing in particular, because that's the only way that you put together all this kind of stuff and have it make sense. You look at the bottom of that and it's all webbing. And they had lines, and actually the wooden steps, it looks like they had a rigged rope system where you could bring that down, but you had to probably release something to make that happen. Who knows what that was, but a drone, better call than walking in there, right? Trying to get up there. Let me just climb up this tree and see how this goes. The Ewok encampment has a wooden stepladder to let its residents reach the ground below it. Its floor appears to be comprised of foam blocks with a net supporting the soft material, which likely gives the shelter's residents a comfortable sleeping experience. On taxpayers' property. So to refresh, this is in the South Park area of Seattle. It's not a great neighborhood. It's on land that is Washington State Department of Transportation. So we've got this whole thing where you got a whole bunch of people, probably, 50 people living in there. One of them created the swimming pool, and then a couple of people from the encampment got into it with a hammer. and they popped the pool. Well, that happened late last week. And then since then, the Washington State Department of Transportation put up a bunch of concrete barricades so that more cars couldn't get into this kind of foresty area that is on Highway 509. It's a freeway. So you've got people moving to the freeway system because they know it's Washington State Department of Transportation land, and they can't just go in and clear an area out. They got to wait for King County Regional Housing Authority and all these steps to take place. So people know that they move into one of these encampments, unless it's, like this encampment. This encampment wasn't supposed to be cleared out for another month. And then all of a sudden, WashDOT is doing just that this weekend. Like, oh yeah. Okay. So we got the Ewok, canopy tent, and then we got the swimming pool. What next? Nightly shootings witnessed by residents across the street from their senior apartment complex. I mean, they're hearing gunshots all day long. It's just this, it's literally one of the residents in that apartment. He said, it's like the Wild Wild West. And that makes sense. I mean, you got people living in Ewok villages. It's so crazy. Up top, the sci-fi style enclosure is covered with a green tarp. It has been stuffed with mounds of trash and the sort of detritus garbage commonly seen in other encampments, including clothes and a black plastic crate. It's unclear who lives in the treehouse, and no residents were visible during Cho's visit. The Ewok village, that's because they're out getting drugs. They're refilling, right? Or they're shoplifting to get drugs. The Ewok village appeared or maybe getting some free food. You got to get that free food every now and then too. The Ewok village appeared in Return of the Jedi, the 1983 movie that was the third in the original Star Wars trilogy. But unlike the site that greets Seattle locals, it was a peaceful and ideal location home to a tribe of Ewoks, furry creatures native to the fictional moon of Endor. So there you go. There's your Star Wars history. But here is, all right, yeah, there's your system of steps, and there's doubled up there. So I believe that gets lowered down. You trip something up top and the other half comes down. Here's your webbing. Here's your other cables. Here's another cross brace up there that I think goes to hauling stuff up and down. I mean, they've got a real system. They have created a system here that they are living in the trees. Now, where else have they done this? Cop City, Atlanta. They're living in the trees. They're tree dwellers. Yeah. Yeah. That's what, and that's, I mean, that's where they're living. That is where they're living. So the caption for this one says, residents in an affluent Seattle neighborhood were outraged earlier this month after homeless people set up a swimming pool at their encampment, which officials refused to remove. The reason that this was deemed a affluent Seattle neighborhood is because I think the homes average $600,000 in value. That's a fixer. That's a fixer. Even in Seattle. I mean, you get a house for that. Yeah, it's not going to look like much. It's going to be tiny and just absolutely destroyed. So this is not an affluent neighborhood. It's just things are so out of control expensive that's what you get. Now here's a real picture of the Ewoks living in their canopies, their tree. I mean, what a cool scene, right? You had those, what were those called? Land cruisers. I think that's what they called them. Those things that it was like a motorcycle, but airflow. You know what I'm talking about. Those were cool. And then they'd fly through the trees, and every now and then somebody'd hit a tree and ka-chunk. Not good. You get taken out. All right. So he said of the Discovery, this is Jonathan Cho of the Discovery, after all the smoke cleared Friday afternoon, I went into the I-5 homeless encampment in downtown Seattle, and they had a massive fire. They had a massive fire. The guy on the news was like, I think that's from an guy covering the traffic that I was watching. He's like, I think this is from an encampment. I think you're right. Where they had multiple propane tanks just, blow up as they do and things catch on fire. It's summer. That tends to happen, right? And he found someone living up high in the evergreens. It's like the Ewok village scene from the Return of the Jedi. Earlier this month, Seattle hit the headlines after a swimming pool was constructed at a separate, I believe this is the same homeless encampment. I do, which saw a murder in May. Murder, swimming pool, Ewok. I mean, you literally can't make these stories up. With senior citizens living close to the slum left terrorized by its presence. That sounds harsh, but it's true. 100% true. 100% true. These senior citizens are like, sometimes I got to hit the ground because there's gunfire and I don't want to get caught, looking out the window. Hey, what's going on out there? Funk. At age 70, whatever, that's not what you had on the checklist of things to do in your early 70s, is it? No. In addition to the tree-dwelling individual, Cho discovered a man building an intricate underground cave tunnel system. Yes, we're going to watch video on that as well. Let's get to it. I met one guy who's extremely talented and should be working, said Cho, accompanying a footage he took of the cave and its architect. He built one of the craziest encampments I've ever seen with an underground tunnel system in the works. The sheer complexity of the structure shocked Cho as it suggested a level of engineering skill beyond the usual makeshift dwellings found in homeless communities. All right, okay. The guy dug some elaborate holes. Let's just say that. Would I want to be near one with a shovel, just kind of digging the dirt around? Probably not. These holes did not meet OSHA requirements, safety, provisions. Just no go. All right. Let's just take a quick peek. Here we go.
Jesse, this is incredible. You just made a hole?
Mm-hmm. Everything.
What is this going to be used for?
For my house.
This is going to be your house?
Yes.
You have incredible skills, Jesse. Where did you learn how to do all this? This incredible craftsmanship.
Yeah.
Where did you learn all this?
In the books.
Why don't you become a mechanic or an architect or...
I have no studium.
You have no what?
No studium. No school.
No school? This is unbelievable. A guy basically dug some sort of cave. I mean, this took a very long time with steps. What if somebody gave you a job right now to build things?
Will work.
Construction? Would you take a job?
I will. Somebody give you a job.
Hold on. I saw this before.
Construction? Would you take a job?
I will. Somebody give you a job. I will.
You know that this is state property. Oh, Jesse, this is...
an actual basketball hoop.
A hole?
Got a hoop. Yeah, there's a hoop back there.
I think they're going to come and move everything.
Okay.
Playing a little basketball.
Okay, I need the time. They come in.
Why don't you take a tiny house or a studio or an apartment?
I got any money, man. How do?
You can't find a job right now?
No, really. I need fucking drug. I need clear. That's what I need. I'm very sick.
So you need clear right now?
Yes, I need drug.
Okay. Incredible. They've also tapped into some runoff here.
Who's that? Why are you walking into people's camps, man?
How long have you been here?
Over a year.
Okay, you know the state's going to come and start clearing this out.
That's fine.
Okay, just wanted to check in,
away.
make sure you're okay.
Just go away. Yeah.
Some wild stuff going on in the woods, isn't it? And that's just people living in the woods. And the one guy, that had really broken English that was digging all the tunnels. He basically said, hey, I need clear. And that is, I believe that is meth. I believe that's a version of meth I haven't heard a lot about, but I've heard it kind of recently. Clear. Straight up meth. Yeah. But the state might want to get on this ASAP, he imagine if this collapses on someone. Why take the risk? Only in Seattle. Well, yeah, but there's so much craziness going on in this homeless encampment that, yeah, people living in the trees, people digging holes, people diverting rainwater. What about the environmental impact of these people on that forest? I mean, you know what I mean? Just a bunch of garbage. I mean, talk about going into a beautiful, I know you've got the freeway right there, but aside from that, it's pretty picturesque. So those hyperlapses that Jonathan Cho was showing, that could be that's like a forest trail, right? A trail through the forest. Instead, you got all kinds of drugs and, all kinds of garbage, those motorcycles. This is what happens when you allow nonsense to go on like that. So let's skip down. So the Seattle encampment is situated on Washington State Department of Transportation property, Cho said, as he toured the property, stopping at various tents that were surrounded by trash and debris. I counted at least 40 suspected situations. He said, lots of drug use, trash, and no doubt there's runoff going into the waterways. It's an environmental disaster in the making. I'd say it's already an environmental disaster because you've got all this stuff. This is just garbage and all kinds of toxicity. You got drugs. I mean, you got gasoline for those motorcycles. You got oil. I don't think that they're changing the oil on their vehicles and taking it down to, O'Reilly's and putting it in the bin where the recycled oil goes. I'm going to, hazard a guess that's not what they're doing. So what initially drew attention to the West Seattle homeless encampment. All right, let's be clear. This is not West Seattle. This is kind of more South Seattle, but it's more in the West Seattle direction than straight up Seattle. So West Seattle homeless encampment was a fully inflated adult-sized swimming pool, which became a controversial topic in recent weeks. You guys wanted me to go take a quick dip in there, show off my swimming skills. Unfortunately, the dudes with the hammer, they popped it, and so it's been cleaned out now. Actually, Department of Transportation, I believe, was cleaning out this encampment fully. They were starting the beginning processes. And last week I said, I believe this has got less than 2 weeks to go, this encampment. And it sounds like they're cranking through. They're cleaning it up because it's so bad. Let's skip down to the encampment witnessed a recent murder, as well as theft and open-air drug use. But the sight of a new inflatable swimming pool was what really threw neighbors off the edge. One woman who's living across the street in the senior center, she's like, hey, they got a pool. We don't have a pool. And she's right. They don't have a pool. I'd love to hear the story on how they got the swimming pool, but bottom line is, who cares? You need to get these people out of there. I mean, they're living illegally. They're doing all kinds of illegal stuff. You got to clear them out. But City of Seattle and all these communities around have allowed this kind of thing to basically just take over. And that's how you end up with situations like that, because now you've got all these folks like the dude that was looking for his next hit of clear. Where are they coming from? That's not a native Seattleite, is it? No, it's not. Where's that guy coming from? Don't know. But you've got people coming from all over and doing this kind of thing. It's the drug tourism. And by that, I mean the homeless drug tourism. People come here because they know, if they get busted, not much is going to happen. And they're not going to get busted for just simple drug possession because we don't do that anymore. It's, the world is your oyster. If you're on that stuff, you're all good. However, officials in the crime-ridden city are dragging their heels with removing it, despite outrage from law-abiding taxpayers living nearby, because we have this ridiculous thing where we have to offer all the people in the encampment housing, a position in housing, before we can do the sweep. And just a tiny fraction of the people actually accept housing because they want to keep doing their drugs. They want to keep doing the lifestyle. Well, if you can make it go living in the Ewok village, why wouldn't you? If you're not too afraid of, falling out, or you think it's going to hold, or, going to the bathroom at night. It might be problematic. It would be for me. All right. Do I just go from here? What are we doing here, guys? Restroom, anybody? Toxic, right? Toxic. When I hear the shooting, I stay down and away from the windows. That's what I was talking about earlier, said a neighbor, Cheryl Gilliam. There are times I had to get on the floor in the middle of the night. All right. because of the individuals at this encampment running around shooting each other willy-nilly. That's what you've got going on. And then you've got the authority that's supposed to clear it out. And they're like, oh, we've got to offer them housing. Look at this. This is a drone shot from Jonathan's drone. What is all that stuff in there? I mean, I could really spend some time and dive in it for you, but look at these ropes. Look at these knots. That's not an amateur hour. That is somebody who knows what they're doing. So and look at everything up over here. You've got it kind of spread out over the top of whatever this is. Is that a branch that we've cut? Who knows, right? I mean, just the chaos that goes into these structures. And the guy building his underground lair, guy's just out in the forest doing meth, digging holes. Apparently, that's just what we're doing. I mean, here's the swimming pool. Now, Monica, she was the leader of this encampment. She allegedly was charging people to stay there. That was kind of my understanding. And she used to be some kind of home renovation expert. So she is putting together all of her carpentry skills. Unfortunately, they will not be needed for the privacy fence because the pool and privacy fence are no longer there. Those have been torn down because they literally put this up within direct sight vision of the senior encampment across the street. They got a couch. They got people, smoking fentanyl poolside. I mean, why wouldn't you? Right. So got anything else in here? It goes on to talk about the guy in the camp. That is one thing, that I always have in the back of my head is that if you are walking around in a homeless encampment, that's a dangerous scenario. A lot of those folks have guns. So, I fear for the safety of people who are kind of investigating this. And, I appreciate the footage, but I'm also concerned for folks' safety, including Jonathan Cho's, going into an environment like this. It's dangerous because that individual in the tent that just said, GD, when Jonathan Cho was like, hey, how long you been here? I mean, you don't know what's going on in people's heads. And these are probably the least stable people that you know of. And so, walking into their environment, that is something that to me, I am very aware of and I wouldn't want to do it. So I appreciate Jonathan Cho's footage, but also, be safe out there, Jonathan, but he knows the drill. I've said that to him before. So yeah, this is, this is what we got going on in Seattle. I mean, we used to have Sleepless in Seattle. I go by that houseboat all the time on my jet ski or on the boat. The Sleepless in Seattle houseboat is literally just down the hill from where my son passed away. And it's right next to a fuel dock that I go to, Morrison's, all the time. So I'm there all the time. Used to be Sleepless in Seattle. That's, what people are like. Now they're like, what about the swimming pool at the homeless encampment? I'm like, yeah, we got that too. Now we can add to that an Ewok village. We had some dance parties on I-5 during the whole summer of love. Now we had gardens being built in CHOP, the occupied protest area on the ball field. Watch that. I'm like, I wonder how this is going to go. So you guys are going to feed the 5,000 people here with the carrots that you're hoping are going to pop up out of this temporary garden area. I think they made the garden permanent as a memorial to the whole CHOP thing. I need to go back there. But again, walking onto some of these sites, I'm more and more aware of how at any single point in time, these people are so tweaked and, have guns, as you do in the woods in your encampment, living off grid. It's dangerous. It's flat out dangerous. And walking in there with a gun, no, you're just looking for trouble. So I appreciate Jonathan Cho's footage very much. Would I do that? I've told Jonathan Cho that I wouldn't mind going with him on one of his normal walks, but I was thinking more like as he walks up the blade, I watch him from across the street and just cower like a 13-year-old girl because I appreciate living. How about that? Yeah, that's kind of where I sit on going into these things. So the guys that do this type of stuff, there's something to it. I mean, you got to be able to hold your own. And Jonathan consistently, responds with the right. You can tell he's done this time and time and time again, just responding to people. But, people do chase him. He's been chased with, I think, a sword. The list just goes on and on and on, right? I've covered half of those stories. And, people get upset because he is exposing something that is out there. The Ewok village in the trees, the underground dwelling people. There was footage last week of a guy or two guys, a decently busy intersection. They pull off the manhole cover. It's in Portland. This is not in Vegas where the worm people or whatever you call them live. This is in Portland, and they pull the manhole cover off, and then they climb down there, and then they pull the manhole cover back over. And where do those people go? I don't know. Is that what's going to happen with this dude who's looking for his clear as he builds his, underground, whatever it is? No, that's just going to get filled in the minute WashDOT takes over, clears this encampment out. Cause it'll happen. When it does, it'll happen like that. And it'll be like those folks were never there because they'll have to go in and clear out. This is a pretty remote setting, right? You're not going to easily get a big truck in there. You're not going to get a dump truck in there. I don't think. I don't know, is there a access from the back area for this encampment? Are they going to work it that way? Because most of the time you've got earth moving machinery because they are moving earth mounds of garbage and needles and just crazy stuff out of these encampments because these people, they're living literally like animals and doing drugs. So that's what you got. Now we're going to add to it the Ewok village in the canopy, tree dwellers. That's what we're doing in Seattle. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much. I'll catch up with you on the next one. Bye for now.